Hi, and welcome back, Flipsiders, to our last and final episode of the Flipside series. It's been lots of fun, hasn't it?
It has lots of reminiscing.
It sure has, and I know for sure I've definitely learned a few things. And today we kind of want to wrap everything up with sort of a very cool theme that I know really challenged a lot of us back in the day with what it means to really live for Christ. And the title of today's is called Playing the Background. So, Andy, why don't you fill us in a little bit on where this title and this inspiration sort of came from?
Yeah, well, the inspiration came from the Lecrae song, background. And as we were listening to that and as we were talking about that, we realized that really Christianity, real Christianity, is all about that. It's all about, am I willing to play the background for Christ, right? Putting aside selfishness, putting forth selflessness, becoming more Christ-like so that we can represent him better and better and better. The only way that I can represent Christ well is when I put myself in the background, right? Let him go forward. Jesus said pretty clearly, you can't serve two masters. Right? You're going to hate one, you're going to love the other. Period. End of conversation. So again, there cannot be Jesus and me pushed to the forefront in my life. It's going to be one or the other, and that's, to me, Dave, where that's the battle. That's the constant everyday battle. A thought comes in my mind, and I get pushed to the front, right? Then I work through that thought, and I want to be more Christ-like, so I forgive, and then that goes like. The idea, though, is can I consistently push myself to the background?
Yeah, for sure. And I know when I think of background, because it's a song, I think about a stage. And
Yep.
Typically when we think about like singing and songs and we think about like rock stars and etc., we always I think all of us have gone through that stage when we were younger. We dreamed about maybe being on a stage of some sort, maybe whether a musician or something. And those people really play a huge prominent role in our society. And basically they're idolized. But what people forget, and the same thing goes for athletes, is that there's a whole group of people behind them. Like with the rock star, there's all the rest of the band. It's bringing it all together. For the all-star quarterback, there's the whole rest of the team. There's the linemen blocking for him, who kind of fade into obscurity. And I think it's really hard in a self-saturated culture like ours to think about, hey, well, what about me? Like, where's my stage moment? Or one thing that's always really challenged me, as I've been taught that like my life is like a circle and there's a throne in the middle, and either I'm on the throne, me, self, or Christ is on the throne.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge step that a lot of Christians haven't taken, because Jesus can be part of your life, but is he Lord of your life? And playing the background requires you to essentially have a moment like we're going to read here in the Bible today from like John the Baptist. Yeah. So if you have your Bible, go to John 3, verse 22, and we get this really cool sort of interaction here, basically John sort of laying out his thoughts on Jesus. And it says, in verse 22, after this, Jesus and his disciples went out into the Judean countryside, where he spent some time with them and baptized. Now John also was baptizing at Aenon, near Salim, because there was plenty of water, and people were constantly coming to be baptized. This was before John was put in prison. An argument developed between some of John's disciples and a certain Jew over the matter of ceremonial washing. They came to John and said to him, Rabbi, that man who was with you on the other side of the Jordan, that man is, by the way, Jesus, the one you testified about, well, he is baptizing, everyone is going to him. So I want to pause for a moment. So all of John's disciples are saying, like, hey, John, you're not as popular as you once were. People aren't rushing to you as they once were. Like, we're kind of losing status and prestige and popularity. To kind of throwing that temptation out there to John. A lot of worldly people would be like, well, you're right. We got to do something to stop this guy. But look how John replies. To this, John replied, a man can receive only what is given him from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said, I am not the Christ, but am sent ahead of him. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him, and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and is now complete. He must become greater, I must become less. So John is basically a couple things here. He's one, reaffirming Jesus' identity as the Christ. John is also saying that my purpose has now been fulfilled,
Yep.
what God's called me
Yep.
to be. And then he follows it up with a very humble statement, a very meek statement of, he must become greater, I must become less.
Yeah.
Andy, why do you think it's such a challenge for people to say what John said here?
Well, because first of all, you and I were talking earlier about this whole idea of trust, right? This is the problem. The playing the background means you have to do what John said. John said, listen, I can only receive that which is given me from heaven, right? What that doesn't mean that we can't take things. It just means I receive things, right? I'm given things. And so we fight this battle, right? Playing the background means I'm going to just wait and receive what God has for me. We live in a culture that says, take what's yours.
Mm-hmm.
Take it, right? Get it. Go get it. That's a proactive, out in front, get it type of thing. Most of us have a hard time with trust. We don't trust that God is going to give us good things, right? We think we have to go get them. We believe the old saying, God helps those who help themselves. It's totally not biblical, right? But we believe that, right? So we're out living that. I'm do. And then God will give to me. No, God says, learn this, right? Learn that if you want to be greatest in the kingdom, you have to be least, right? Learn all these different things, which basically all it says is, trust God this day for your daily bread.
Yeah.
Right? Trust this day for everything that you need. So to me, this thing has always been really important because it gauges faith, it gauges trust, it gauges all those kind of things, right? That we need to remember, right? I want to represent Christ. Well, if I want to represent Christ, I need to be patient, wait for him to give me the things that he has promised, right? I need to be patient. I need to stay in the background so he can stay in the forefront. Sometimes we're representing Christ well as we're waiting, right? Sometimes it's not, God doesn't have us in the background just because he's punishing and all this. He has us in the background because he wants Christ to always be shining through. Sometimes that's through hard moments, hard things, tough things, right? Like that's super important. The question is, do you trust that God has your best interests in mind when he's asking you to play the background and give up the forefront?
Yeah, and that's always just so tough because, once again, like self is the huge motivator. The what about me? We hear that from little kids. I think that from baby Christians, the what about me also tends to kind of cry out. And I think about some other teachings that Jesus said. Take up your cross and follow me. Like taking up my cross. So what is that? It's not a walk around with a cross necklace on it. It's a literal dying to self every single day. It's the crucified life. Well, what does it mean to die to self? It's kind of like I think about, I'm not good with names, but I think about the I Can Only Imagine movie. Where you have to help
Mercy Me.
Mercy Me. What is it?
I think it's Bart.
Bart. Yeah, his song kind of gets basically sort of sold, like someone else is going to sing it. I think
Amy
it was
Grant.
Amy Grant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she has a moment. I always remember this in the movie. She has a moment. She goes out there and she's about to play it, and God just kind of moves on her, and she's like, you know what? I think you need to hear. And she steps aside and she plays a background role, and Bart comes out, which I think is really easy to miss in that moment because so many of us are like, oh, look at him, star of the movie singing his song, but we forget how hard it must have been for Amy in that movie. She's trying to have a resurgent moment. She's trying to have a basically comeback.
Yeah.
And
She's trying to be restored.
She has to give that up and give Bart an opportunity. And I think that's just so cool, but it's also so hard because we're so used to seeing, on TV and social media, stories of people taking and kind of running over people versus people playing that background role.
Amen. I have zero to add to that.
And this is and being our final episode, I like to end with a challenge for you guys. Play the background wherever you are.
Amen.
And let God move you to that place in His good timing. And if you're ever interested in teaming up with us down here, there's lots of opportunities to play the background and lots of opportunities to use your uniquely gifted gifts that God has given you to further His kingdom and to be like John here, in the sense of the joy is mine and it is now complete. Hope that you can Hope that you and me and Andy can all say that at the end of our lives, or at the end of God's time of using us. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for future episodes and other teachings from Drash Ministries.